There's two kinds of items that people buy and think they're investing. One really is investing and the other isn't. If you buy something, a farm, an apartment house, or an interest in a business, and look to the asset itself to determine whether you've done something, what the farm produces, what the business earns, and so on, you don't really care whether the stock market's open. You can do that on a private basis. In fact, you do it on a private basis if you buy a farm or apartment house generally. And it's a perfectly satisfactory investment. You look at the investment itself to deliver the return to you. Now, if you buy something like Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency, you don't have anything that's producing anything. You're just hoping the next guy pays more. And you only feel you'll find the next guy to pay more if he thinks he's going to find somebody that's going to pay more. Now, if you ban trading in farms, you could still buy farms and have a perfectly decent investment. If you ban trading in apartment houses or even in equities, if you ban trading in Berkshire Hathaway for the next 5 years, our investors would do fine, over time. But if you ban trading in tulip bulbs, or if you ban trading in some Bitcoin, which nobody knows exactly what it is, people would say, well, why in the world would I buy it? And you aren't investing when you do that. You're speculating. There's nothing wrong with it. If you want to gamble, somebody else will come along and pay you more money tomorrow. That's one kind of game. That is not investing.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with BILLIONAIRES.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Warren Buffett, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, surround yourself with success.
It's very important to surround yourself with people that are better than you are. You are going to move in the direction of the people you associate with. So you constantly. I've been enormously lucky in that respect. I mean, I've just had teachers and friends and a spouse that really was a better person than I was, and I had enough sense to learn from these people that life went better if you behave better yourself. It took a while. So I advise you to seek out, as your partner in business, your partner in life, whatever it may be, look for the people that actually are examples to you, rather than somebody that you think you need to straighten out yourself. And simple rules like that, delighting customers, working through other people, associating with people that will cause you to move in a better path than you might otherwise have, they will take you so far in life that it's hard to believe.
Rule number 3, love the people you work with.
If you can in life, work at what you love with people you love. And it comes back at you. Love is something you can't get rid of. If you give it to other people, you get it back. If you try to hold on to it, it disappears. I mean, it's unlike anything else in the world. And we put on this whole show. We've got probably 300 to 400 people from our subsidiaries coming in. We have everybody in the world wanting hotel rooms. We've got them. I mean, all the things that go with having 40,000 plus people come and having a 200,000 square foot exhibition hall and everything else. And that basically is handled by the people in our office. We've got 25 people in the office. We had 25 last year. We got 25 this year. Exactly the same people, not one change of a person. This is a company with 350,000 or so people around the world working, and added 16 billion to sales last year, but we did not add a person. And our CFO is down there working. I mean, he is working with projectionists or whatever they have up there and making sure this and that is right. Everybody, the woman that is in charge of our taxes, you name it, everybody pitches in and they all have a good time.
Rule number 4, find good mentors.
I didn't want to go to college, so I don't know whether I would have done better or worse if I'd just quit after high school, and read the books I read and all of that. I think that if you run into a few great teachers and they really change the way you see the world to some degree, you're lucky, and you can find them in academia, and you can find them in ordinary life. And I've been extraordinarily lucky in having great teachers, including Charlie. I mean, Charlie's been a wonderful teacher. And, you know, any place you can find somebody that gives you insights into things you didn't understand before, maybe makes you a better person than you would have been before, you know, that's very lucky, and you want to make the most of it. If you can find it in academia, make the most of it. And if you can find it in the rest of your life, make the most of it.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, invest in yourself first.
By far the best investment you can make is in yourself. I mean, for example, communication skills. I tell the students that come that they're going to graduate schools and business, and they're learning all these complicated formulas and all that. If they just learn to communicate better, and both in writing and in person, they increase their value at least 50%. And, I mean, if you can't communicate, somebody says, you know, it's like winking at a girl in the dark. Nothing happens, you know, basically. And you have to be able to get forth your ideas, and that's relatively easy. I did it myself with the Dale Carnegie course. Some people wish I'd taken a shorter course now in terms of my talking later on. But it's just hugely important. And if you invest in yourself, nobody can take it away from you.
Rule number 6, focus on customer experiences.
You don't necessarily get it right exactly right the first time. I mean, the car leasing business, you know, basically you were competing on the cost of money to finance cars. And it's very hard to delight a customer when you just give them the car and tell them to send you a monthly check for 5 years and you'll be back at that time. So his talents were being wasted basically in that business. But at the age of 40, with all of that experience behind him, he found the golden key, and he took a very ordinary business and turned it into an absolutely extraordinary operation, and just like Mrs. B or Rose Bumpkin did with furniture. And he didn't worry about whether the Federal Reserve was going to tighten or ease. He didn't worry about whether the stock market was up or down yesterday. You know, he didn't worry about the things he couldn't change. But he did focus on the one thing he could change, and that was the customer's experience. And I have seen, the one that got away, Enterprise, I went down to Florida and tried to talk him into selling to Berkshire, and he was smart enough not to do it. Probably the value of the company has quadrupled since I made that visit. But he was smart enough to see that he would find that business. Henry Ford, as you may know, failed twice before he started the Ford Motor Company in 1903. I mean, the test isn't whether you get the greatest business idea in the world the first time out. The test is whether you keep learning as you go along what your strengths are and what you can do for your customers, what you can bring especially to the party. And to do that, you need the education that I know you've received through 10,000 small businesses, but you need a genuine desire day in, day out to delight the customer. I've never seen a business, and I've seen a lot of businesses, but I've never seen one that delights the customer that doesn't succeed. I mean, what you want is that customer the next day when they think, do I want to rent a car or do I want to buy some furniture? What goes through their mind? It's the place where they've had a great experience. I don't know what I paid for this tie. Actually, probably if somebody gave it to me, but for the purposes of this speech, I will say I have no idea. But or the shirt I'm wearing, or this, but I do know. I will remember how I was treated when I bought it. I mean, you long forget about the price, but you never forget whether you had a good experience or a poor experience with the purchase experience.
Rule number 7, get great partners.
The most important thing, aside from the things I've talked about already, is really who you associate with. You want to associate with people that are better than you are. I mean, basically, you'll go in the direction of the people that you associate with, and you want to have the right heroes. You want people, if you want to emulate somebody, you better pick very carefully who you want to emulate. And when, obviously, you can't pick your parents. They're going to have an enormous influence on you, but you don't get a choice on that. But you get choices as you go down the line, and who you admire, who you want to copy, and the most important for most people in terms of that decision is their spouse. It's also important in terms of a partner in business, but the partner in life is the most important one. You want to pick a spouse that's better than you are, and then he or she, and you hope they don't figure it out too fast.
Rule number 8, pay your people fairly.
Some of our managers are in businesses that are just much easier. I mean, we bought into a variety of businesses. People are obviously influenced by what pay arrangements are elsewhere. It wouldn't be human if they weren't. And trying to come to the right answer when you have different degrees of capital intensity, very different degrees of basic profitability, and how much you scale up based on size, because there is an incentive to grow businesses. Usually if businesses get much larger, everybody from the CEO down expects to earn more money for something where they really bring the same amount of intensity and work and ability to it. It is really a tough question. I think that if you engage compensation consultants at public companies, which they all do, they're going to recommend things that cause them to have CEOs recommend them to other companies. It's just you're working against human nature when you have an arrangement like that. I would say that we have obviously kept a very, very, very high percentage of the managers that we hope to have stay with us. In fact, just about 100%. And I think people do like to make their own decisions. They do like recognition. Most people respond. They like doing a good job, and they like the fact that we understand it, and compensation is part of that, but it's not the whole thing. I wish I could give you some precise formulas.
Rule number 9, take some risks.
We don't prepare ourselves for a single problem. We prepare ourselves for problems that sometimes create their own momentum. I mean, 2008 and 2009, you didn't see all the problems the first day when what really kicked it off was when the Freddie and Fannie, the GSEs, went into conservatorship in early September, and then when money market funds broke the buck. I mean, there are things that trip other things, and we take a very much a worst case scenario into mind that probably is a considerably worse case than most people do. So I don't look at it as huge, and I'm not recommending that people buy stocks
today or tomorrow or next week or next month. I think it all depends on your circumstances, but you shouldn't buy stocks unless you expect, in my view, you expect to hold them for a very extended period, and you are prepared financially and psychologically to hold them the same way you would hold a farm and never look at a quote and never pay it. You don't need to pay attention to them. I mean, the main thing to do, and you're not going to pick the bottom, and nobody else can pick it for you or anything of the sort. You've got to be prepared to, when you buy a stock, to have it go down 50% or more and be comfortable with it as long as you're comfortable with the holding. And I pointed out, I think a year, maybe 2 years ago in the annual report, just the one before this most recent one, I pointed out that there have been 3 times in Berkshire's history when the price of Berkshire stock went down 50%. 3 different times. Now, if you owed it on borrowed money, you could have been cleaned out. There wasn't anything wrong with Berkshire when those 3 times occurred, but if you're going to look at the price of the stock and think that you have to act because it's doing this or that, or somebody else tells you, well, how can you stay with that when something else is going up or anything? You've got to be in the right psychological position. And frankly, some people are not really careful. Some people are more subject to fear than others. It's like the virus. It strikes some people with much greater ferocity than others, and fear is something I really never felt financially, but I don't think Charlie's felt it either. But some people can handle it psychologically. If you can't handle it psychologically, then you really shouldn't own stocks because you're going to buy and sell them at the wrong time. And you should not count on somebody else telling you this. You should do something you understand yourself. If you don't understand it yourself, you're going to be affected by the next person you talk to. And so you should be in a position to hold. And I don't know whether today is a great day to buy stocks. I know it will work out over 20 or 30 years. I don't know whether it'll work out over 2 years at all. I have no idea whether you'll be ahead or behind on a stock you buy on Monday morning.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have an investor's mindset.
You have to have the attitude that you're buying part of a business and not that you're buying something that wiggles around on a chart or that has resistance zones or 200-day moving averages or that you buy puts or calls on or anything like that. You're buying part of a business. And if you buy intelligently into a business, you're going to make money. And then you have to buy something that, in my view, which you do if you're buying a business, that you're not going to get a quote on for 5 years, that they're going to close the stock exchange tomorrow for 5 years, and that you'll be happy owning it as a business. If you owned Coca-Cola, it didn't really make any difference in 1920. When I went public, the important thing was what I was doing with customers. And you probably would have been better off if there wasn't any market in it for 30 or 40 years, because then you wouldn't have gotten tempted to sell it. And you'd just watch the business and you'd watch it grow and you'd feel happy. So the proper attitude toward investing is much more important than any technical skills.
How would you advise people who aren't necessarily going into a career field in which you would make a large base salary, such as like medicine or something like that, maybe performing arts or music? How would you advise us to keep up financially with the rest of the world?
Well, it is true that a market system does not pay as well in some activities as might seem appropriate for the importance of those activities to society. Just take teaching, for example. I mean, teaching does not pay well. And what could be more important? I mean, you've got to be as interested in who the teachers of your children are as who your accountant is, or whatever, or who's winning the heavyweight title of the world, or that sort of thing. But it doesn't pay well, and it's a fundamental choice whether you're going to go into something. For many people, it'd be a fundamental choice whether you're going to go into something you love or something to try and make a lot of money. I think that generally it pays to go with what you love. I think that it's very hard to find people when they get to be my age who say that they've loved what they've done all their life and feel it was very worthwhile, but they're terribly sad they made that choice because they didn't make a lot of money. I don't think anybody's ever said that to me, that they wish they'd gone into something else where they were uncomfortable doing it or didn't enjoy it, didn't feel very productive, but made a lot of money. So I don't think you'll find that. So I would go to work. I would go to work in whatever turns you on. It may turn out that it'll be more profitable than you can think, but almost everybody here will make enough money, unless they get some terrible habits along the way, to do reasonably well. And doing reasonably well in this country really is pretty darn good. I mean, it's not necessary to have huge amounts of money in order to enjoy yourself. I enjoyed myself when I had my $10,000, and I live in the same house that I lived in when I had about that. I bought it 41 years ago. I liked the house then. I like the house now. I mean, if you think about it, if you have a reasonable job, you'll be eating at McDonald's and I'll be eating at McDonald's. So we're to push on food. I mean, in fact, I hope it's Dairy Queen, actually, and and if you come to Dairy Queen, you'll see me. And you can order anything on the menu I can order, and we both can afford it. You'll wear the same clothes I wear. I'll pay more for my suits, but as soon as I put them on, they look cheap on me. So we'll look about the same. And we'll both live in the same kind of houses. I live in that house from 41 years ago, and it's warm in winter, and it's cool in summer, and it's comfortable. And you'll live in a house that's similar. And what difference does it make if you have 50 more rooms or guest houses or all that? It'll probably just bring you problems. I mean, you have to worry about the greenskeeper or something when you get through. So I have been in the houses of people where the houses are worth probably 200 times what my house is worth, and I would not be any happier in those houses at all. In fact, I'd be less happy. I'd just have one more thing to worry about, and dozens of people around the place, and people quitting, and people stealing from you, and all kinds of things. To hell with it. We'll drive the same kind of car. In fact, you'll probably drive a better car. I drive a car that's about 8 years old. I don't know what it's worth now, but it gets me around fine. I mean, I'm perfectly happy. We'll watch the same television. We'll work on the same computer pretty much. The only difference will be how we travel long distances. I will fly in a plane that's more comfortable than flying Southwest Airlines or something, which I've got nothing against. But that's the one real big difference. And other than that, I do what I like every day. I hope you'll do what you like every day to do. And I work with nice people. I hope you work with nice people. And there's 24 hours in the day, and those are where the hours go. So great wealth is the tiniest bit different in a real sense than having just a decent income, and to trade a decent income and something you love doing and something where you feel worthwhile doing it for huge wealth where you trade off a lot of your principles would be a terrible mistake.
Over the years, I've developed a better understanding of human nature. I can learn a lot about investments out of a book, but I don't think you can learn as much about human beings. You really need some experiences, and I'm wiser in that respect than I was 40 or 50 years ago, even though I can't rattle off numbers the same way I used to be able to. If you look around the world at the people that succeed and the people that other people want to work with, the natural leaders, it isn't because they have the highest IQ or they can kick a football the furthest or anything like that. They're people that you want to work with. I mean, I've got a wonderful friend named Tom Murphy. I would do anything for him. He's never going to ask me to do it, but I mean, I want to do it. I mean, I want to do it. I mean, he's done so many things for me, he doesn't have to pay me to do it or anything of the sort. That's what you want to. You want to look for that, and then you want to be that.
I was very lucky in life. If you tell me who your heroes are, I will make a pretty good prediction about what you're going to do. And I had the right heroes. I was very lucky in life, and my heroes never let me down, and started with my dad, and then I had others in business. And so I have had great teachers, some formal teachers, some that were just informal teachers by instinct or example. And if I hadn't had those, my life, I'm sure, would have been very different.
Can you help us understand how to cultivate that mindset of being comfortable saying no, being comfortable delegating? This is something that we found with our members is especially difficult for young women.
It's tough.
And we'd love to just hear your take on that, and maybe any advice you have to share about that.
I met Bill Gates in 1991, and when I did it, we had a great time talking. He thought he was going to hate it, and I wasn't too keen on it either. And about 10 hours later, we were still talking. But what really got him is when I pulled out this little date book. I'm probably the only guy in the United States with one of these still. You've got that.
Over there.
And I just flipped through it, and there's practically nothing in it. And Bill was really impressed by that. And you've got to keep control of your time, and you won't keep control of your time unless you can say no. You can't let other people set your agenda in life. And of course, I know I'm in a very fortunate position on that because I can. And in another way, I'm not so fortunate because more people ask me for things, and they're usually friends, and they say, "Well, can't you just make this one talk or attend this one graduation or whatever it may be?" You just have to develop the ability to say no and do it a few times. If a woman can't say no, she's in trouble, right?
Right. And I mean, is this something that becomes easier over time, or how did you?
I don't think it gets a lot easier. No, it's there's a few things that really just are uncomfortable enough. The thing I dislike the most, the only thing I really dislike in connection with my job is if I have to fire somebody. I mean, that does not get easier for me as life has gone along. And saying no is not like firing people, but it's got a little bit of the same aspect to it. It's not easy to say no, particularly to a friend. But I will have every day 3 or 4 or 5 requests to do something, and I can't do them all. But I'm not promising it gets easier. but just keep doing it. Otherwise, other people will be running your life.
What do you think the lessons are of the last couple of cycles that you've seen from an investor standpoint? We've got a lot of young kids out there. You've lived through multiple cycles in the 50, 60 years plus you've been investing, 70 years investing. What are the lessons, and these are young people, what should they take away?
The lessons are that people will continue to make the same mistakes they've made. I mean, humans, and it doesn't correlate to IQ particularly. I mean, when they get greedy, and we had this huge bubble in the most important asset the American public has, housing. I mean, so you had a huge bubble in something that you could borrow heavily against. So you could run a margin account effect on a house instead of stocks, and the conditions got very lax. And so when that bubble popped, but people came into that gradually. When they get fearful, it happens all at once. I mean, when people get scared, they all want to leave at one time. And we had them all want to leave at one time, and that'll happen again. It'll happen with a different set of circumstances, but the human animal will keep behaving pretty much the way it has in the past. So we will have periodic recessions. We'll have an occasional panic, which doesn't all recessions don't come from panics, but the good news is, if you look at the 20th century, in the 20th century, we had 2 world wars, we had the Great Depression, we had the flu epidemic, we had the Cold War, we had the atom bomb, you name it. The Dow Jones average went from 66 to 11,497. With all these terrible things happening supposedly at various times. America works. And when I bought my first stock when I was 11, that was in the spring of 1942. And that was a couple months after Pearl Harbor. And we were getting clobbered in the Pacific at Corregidor and Bataan. I mean, the Death March of Bataan. And in the European theater, the Blitz of England was on. And the Dow was at about 100. But just look at where we are now. I mean, the country really works. The trick is, it seems to me the obligation of a society as prosperous as ours is to figure out how nobody gets left too far behind. Right. But you don't have to worry about the system working. But you will have periodic recessions, and you will have an occasional panic brought on by something that who knows where it comes from. The thing to remember at that time, I wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Times in the fall of 2008, and I said, that the country will come back. It'll go through a big recession and everything, but it'll come back, and it's coming back.
Where does this populist instinct in you come from?
I was born lucky. I was born in the United States of America. The odds were at least 30-1 against that. I didn't have anything to do with that. I was born wired for capitalization. I didn't have anything to do with that. So here I am. I won the ovarian lottery the day I was born. A lot of people don't. They go off to Afghanistan and fight for us to preserve things for me. I mean, when some of my friends complain about their taxes, I feel like saying, let's continue this conversation on the shores of Normandy. Let's just go over there and we'll just talk about this, how terrible your situation is. And I really think this country works wonderfully on a market system. And we don't want to give it up. We have to control that market system in many ways, but it works. It works with the kind of incentives we have. It works with equality of opportunity. It's not perfect, but we've tried it. We've tried for it over the time. But the lucky ones still prosper incredibly disproportionately, under this. I'm not for having some kind of a czar and one decides what's proper for everybody, but I do think something that thinks about the 60 million people that are living at $21,000 a year or less in their household. I think a rich society should think about them a little bit every day.
Are there investments that you really wish you had never done? What's your worst investment?
I made a lot of terrible deals, and the worst. It's hard to. Probably the worst deal will be one I make in the future. But the current title, I bought a company, and incidentally, I did it. I mean, we do not have PowerPoints around or people explaining this stuff to me. I just go out and do them. And we bought a company called Dexter Shoe. George Mitchell's here tonight. He knows the company. And we paid $400 million for it, which went to zero. But we paid $400 million in stock. And the stock we gave up is probably worth maybe $3 or $4 billion today. So whenever Berkshire goes down, I feel better about that deal.
You've been famous for your investment strategy on basically that follows the opposite side of principles. Invest when the chips are down and ride it up. That served you well. So what's your favorite time that you were able to accomplish that, when you caught somebody down and moved
well,
up?
I always think my favorite time's going to be tomorrow. It's always been fun, And there's a company here in Washington called Geico, And I first got exposed to that in 1950. I was 20 years. I was 19 years. Well, it was 51. I'm sorry. I was 20 years old, and I came down here, and I came down on a Saturday because I'd learned that my professor who I worshiped at Columbia named Ben Graham was the chairman. I got down here and the door was locked. When I went to the building, because it was Saturday, and I pounded on the door, and some janitor let me in, and a marvelous fellow named Lorimer Davidson spent 4 hours with me teaching me all about insurance, and he helped me so much in life. But you're going to get help by some wonderful people in life. It's a great thing to remember later on when you get to be my age, that all the help you've received from different people, because nobody does it alone. Obama got in trouble when he said that in the campaign, that nobody does it by themselves. Nobody does do it by themselves. We all sit in the shade of trees that were planted by others. So it's obligatory, I think, to plant a few trees ourselves if we've had good luck. It's been a great ride, but it's not over.
Of the investments you've made over the years at Berkshire Hathaway, which one would you say was the single best investment? Is there one that you really are most proud of?
Well, the one I'm probably the most emotionally attached to is Geico, because of a bunch of reasons, but it goes back to a day in January of 1951, a Saturday. And that, what Lorimer Davidson did for me changed my life. And he didn't have to do it. I mean, I walked in there as some 20-year-old kid on a Saturday, and he spent 4 hours educating me, and then he became a friend for life. And then subsequent people are Jack Byrne and Tony Nicely, who's here tonight. I mean, it's just been a wonderful association, whether we made any money or not. But we've done pretty well on the investment too. But beyond that, it has a special meaning to me.
You have said before that to me and to others that Berkshire is your canvas that you paint on. It's your masterpiece.
Well, I don't have masterpiece, but it's my canvas.
So what is it that, if you look at it today, Berkshire, you find fault with?
Find fault with?
Yeah.
Well, I made plenty of mistakes along the way, so I've got a lot of brush strokes out there that if I just give me a little whatever it takes to remove that, I would do it. So I made plenty of mistakes, but I expect to make mistakes, and I'll keep making mistakes. So,
because unless you take chances, you won't make mistakes.
Oh, sure, and mistakes are part of the game. I mean, you're swinging at pitches, and you miss a few. But no, I don't want to sound. I feel good about Berkshire. I mean, the people I'm associated with, the businesses, we have we lay out our economic principles, and I laid them out many, many years ago, and we don't change them. I mean, we try to operate that way. Doesn't mean we're perfection. You get a company of 260,000 people, I'll guarantee you right now somebody's doing something I wish they weren't. I mean, you can't have a city of 260,000 people and have no jails. But overall, I feel there's a culture that I don't think any other really large public company has, and I think it's enduring because it's so inculcated in the managers, the shareholders, the directors, everybody. So I feel good about Berkshire. I just read and read and read. I probably read 5 to 6 hours a day. I don't read as fast now as when I was younger, but I read 5 daily newspapers. I read a fair number of magazines. I read 10Ks. I read annual reports, and I read a lot of other things too. So I've always enjoyed reading. I love reading biographies. It never bothered me if people disagreed with what I thought, as long as I felt I knew the facts. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things I don't know a thing about. I just stay away from those. So I stay within what I call my circle of competence. You know, Tom Watson said it best. He said, I'm no genius, but I'm smart in spots, and I stay around those spots. Well, I try and stay around those spots, and I just don't have a problem if somebody says, you're wrong on something. I go back and look at the facts, and I think that really is much more important, frankly, than having a few points of IQ or having an extra course or two in school or anything of the sort. You need emotional stability. The nature of capitalism is that people want to come in and take your castle. It's perfectly understandable. I mean, if I'm selling television sets or something, there's going to be 10 other people that are going to try and sell a better television set. If I have a restaurant here in Omaha, people are going to try and copy my menu and give more parking and take my chef and so on. So capitalism's all about somebody coming and trying to take the castle. Now, what you need is a castle that has some durable competitive advantage, some castle that has a moat around it. And that moat, one of the best moats in many respects, is to be a low-cost producer. But sometimes the moat is just having more talent. I mean, if you're the heavyweight champion of the world and you keep knocking out people, you've got a competitive advantage as long as you can keep doing it. And it's very profitable if you're the one that happens to be able to do it. If you can turn out great motion pictures, I mean, Steven Spielberg, I mean, he's a fellow to bet on, and it has enormous economic value. Famous lesson about a margin of safety, that you don't drive a truck that weighs 9,900 pounds across a bridge that says limit 10,000 pounds, because you can't be that sure about it. If you see something like that, you go down a little further down the road and you find one that says limit 20,000 pounds, and that's the one you drive across. You'd be surprised at my days. I mean, they're very unstructured, no meetings. None. I mean, I don't like meetings, and I read a lot. I wish I were a faster reader. I'd get more done. But I do read a lot, and I'm on the phone a moderate amount. Our businesses run themselves basically out there. My job is allocating capital, and that's what I'm thinking about. But I don't like to have things all packed hour to hour to hour. And Bill and I are both extraordinarily lucky. I mean, we really get to do what we like to do, the way we want to do it, with people that we choose to be around, and they're terrific. I mean, we've really got everything our way, and we're very fortunate. And in his world, he has a different kind of pace than I have, but we both love it the way we do it. And my guess is that we're each the most productive in that particular mode too, because it fits our personalities and aptitudes.
What other habits did you cultivate in your 20s and your 30s that you now see as being foundational to your success as a business person?
Well, I knew a lot about what I do when I was 20. I mean, I'd really read a lot, and I aspired to learn everything that I could about the subject. So intellectually, I knew a lot. I did not know a lot about human behavior. I mean, that you can't learn really out of reading books, but it's very important to understand people. And I say to the students, just imagine you could buy, or you could be given 10% of the future earnings of one person that you know, among everybody you know. Now, are you going to pick the person that's the smartest? Are you going to pick the person that can dance the best, or that can run the fastest, or anything like that?
It's the right height.
No, anything. No.
Color.
You're gonna pick the person that has the right habits, that is cheerful, generous, gives other people credit for what they do. And when you look at all of the qualities that you admire in other people, which would cause you to pick that person, say to yourself, which of those qualities can't I have myself? Because they are, you determine whether you have them. So just write them down on a piece of paper. Who is the person that you admire the most or like the best? Why do I like them? And just write down and then say, which of these can I do myself? And the truth is you can do them. And then also, if you really want to carry it to the next extreme, you pick the person you dislike the most. And why do you dislike that person? They always, they're never fair about things, basically. They always claim more credit than they're due and everything. And write down those qualities and say, if you dislike that in some other person, why in the world would you want to have those yourself? So you just get rid of those. And it's a pretty simple thing to do. But you want to be the person that if you could pick your best friend, that you would have the same qualities. Everything you do learn is cumulative. I mean, that doesn't mean that industries stay good forever or businesses stay good forever, but learning to think about business models. What I learned at 20 is useful to me now. What I learned at 25 is useful to me now. And so it's not a field that changes dramatically in terms of the underlying principles. It's like physics. I mean, there's underlying principles. Now they're doing all kinds of things with physics they weren't doing 50 years ago. But if you know if you got the principles, if you know what makes a good business, if you know what makes a good manager, if you know what makes a good product, and you learn that in one business, there is some transference to other businesses as you go along, and you learn what things you're not going to understand. I mean, knowing what to leave out is just as important as knowing what to focus on. And I don't think I can win every game. Somebody said, how do you beat Bobby Fischer? You play him any game except chess. So I don't play Bobby Fischer chess. And there's a lot of value to learning that over time and learning what you're good at and what you're not good at. I do tell those students, that if I gave you a car and it'd be the only car you get in the rest of your life, you'd take care of it like you can't believe. Any scratch, you'd fix that moment. You'd read the owner's manual. You'd keep a garage and do all these things. And you get exactly one mind and one body in this world. And you can't start taking care of it when you're 50. By that time, you'll have rusted out if you haven't done anything. So you should really make sure that you just remember that you just got one mind and body to get through life with and to do the most with it.
All of you in this room have the brains to do extremely well in life. You've all got the energy to do extremely well in life. And then the question is, how do you apply it? If you've got a 200 horsepower motor, do you get 200 horsepower out of it? Do you get your full potential, or do you get 100 horsepower or 50 horsepower? Now, there's two things that can hold you back in getting the full horsepower out of your engine, whatever it may be. All of you have big enough engines. And one of those is a lack of education, but that probably isn't going to happen to very many people in this room. If you did have a lack of education, if you didn't have a chance to get a decent education in life, it wouldn't make any difference what that potential was, because you'd never unlock it. But the second most important thing, and equally as important, is in terms of the habits that you develop, in terms of what you do with yourself. When we hire people, we look for three qualities. We look for integrity, we look for intelligence, and we look for energy. But if they don't have the first one, integrity, the other two will kill you. Because if you're hiring somebody without integrity, you really want them to be dumb and lazy, don't you? I mean, last thing in the world you want for them is to be smart and energetic. So smart and energetic only goes with integrity. But the nice thing about you make your own decision on that. You can't change your IQ or how far you can throw a football or how high you can jump or the color of your hair very easily. But you can elect to have integrity that matches anybody else's. And if you match that with intelligence, which you have, and energy, which you have, you will get an extraordinary result, and you'd be very foolish to sell me 10% of yourself for $50,000. On the other hand, if you don't match it with that, your potential will, in a significant part, go unused.
One of the things you do in your annual report, which has become a classic, is you will discuss what went wrong, like Dexter, and what you learned, and what you learned from it.
Sure.
Tough to do.
Well, it's very important to recognize mistakes. I mean, if somebody goes around and says, I never made a mistake, I mean, you quit listening to them. I mean, they're in a dream world. So facing up to it, it's a little like in terms of discussing issues. You should be able to discuss the other fellow's position just as well as you can discuss your own. So I mean, that's part of thinking well, and certainly part of making good decisions in business is recognizing the poor decisions you've made and why they were poor, and that doesn't mean you never do the same thing. I mean, because sometimes it was a freak situation, but I have made lots of mistakes. I'm going to make more mistakes, but Babe Ruth struck out a lot of times. I mean, it's the name of the game that you do it. You don't want to expect perfection in yourself. You want to strive to do your best, but it's too demanding to expect perfection in yourself, and it does some good to recognize them and not start trying to go around kidding people about them.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Bill Gates, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
And the idea of, kind of looking at volume curves, and it doesn't invent anything. And so I thought my way of looking at the world, what I wanted to figure out and do, and what he looked at